Does Mikel Brown Jr. have the highest upside of any guard not named Darryn Peterson in this draft? I think so. And I'm going to tell you why on today's One More Thing in Locked On Mavs. You are locked on the Dallas Mavericks. This is one of your hosts, Isaac Harris, covering the Mavs for the last 10 years, alongside my good friend, Nick Angstead. And today I'm talking about the draft, and I'm talking about Mikel Brown Jr. out of Louisville. Yes, I say Louisville, from Kentucky. That's everybody I grew up around. Everybody I talked to, I lived outside of Louisville for a bit. Everyone that I knew said Louisville until I get outside of Kentucky, and then it was like Louisville. So I'm gonna say Louisville, and you're just gonna have to get over it on this show today. I want to talk about Mikel Brown Jr. I've been kind of delaying my one more thing about him as far as like a prospect, a target for Dallas, because I've been wanting just more news about his back, which I'm sure we'll learn more about coming up later on in the spring, maybe next month when we get into combine stuff in May. But I thought, I was like, hey, let's just go ahead and do it now, because he officially, word came out that he's declaring for the draft. Shocker, because he's most likely going to be a top 10 pick. And I was like, all right, let's do it now. Let me break out a bunch of my notes about him, because I've liked Mikel Brown for a while. I mean, he was at 5 for me for a really long time until I moved Wagler up there. And when you look at a guy like Mikel Brown Jr., I'm going to talk about him as far as a basketball talent and skills on today's show and how he would fit in Dallas. But the biggest question mark about him is this back injury. And it's the thing, I'm just being very clear up front, this is the thing that scares me the most about him. And it might make me like pull him down on my like personal Mavs big board a little bit, just because that's just it's not like a cop out. It's just, especially a back injury, that's pretty dang important. So I'll talk about that injury specifically on the show too, some comps, and why I think he has the highest upside outside of Peterson in that, top 3, top 4 group. As a guard prospect, I think Mikel Brown has the highest upside of any of the guards in that group. So when you look at, when I first heard about Brown coming out of high school, and he was this highly ranked high school prospect. It was top 10. I think he finished, he finished in 8th on ESPN's top 100 coming out of high school. And the players above him, I actually wrote this down. Players above him were the top 4 picks you think that are going to be in the draft: Peterson, DeBonta, Boozer, and Wilson. And then the three other players above him coming out of high school before they even played a college game was Nate Ament, Chris Sinak at Houston, and Darius Garland Jr. So he was ranked 8. He chooses to go to Louisville, and that's why I kind of like knew about him the most out of that class, outside of like DeBonta and Boozer and those guys, because you've heard, if you follow any type of high school basketball, you've heard about those guys. But I really looked into Mikel Brown because anybody who goes to like Louisville, Kentucky, North Carolina, especially for Louisville and Kentucky back home, I just have different friends and stuff there that were just super hyped. We're like, dude, we're getting this guy, Mikel Brown. Like, he is going to be this super fun prospect. And so I started looking into him, and he goes to DME in high school, and he was this primary ball handler, creator, playing the point guard role. In high school. He goes to Louisville, and he plays this kind of like combo guard role. And, one of the first games he has at Louisville, his like breakout game is, they play Kentucky, and he just lights them up, and it's exciting. It's, everybody's going nuts about it, throwing out comps left and right. And it's just like, oh my gosh, Donovan Mitchell, this is the new Mitchell, who went to Louisville. And it was just a lot of fun. And then it just became a roller coaster of a season for him because it wasn't just the explosion scoring outputs that he had, like the Kentucky game. And then he eventually had the NC State game later on, in which he hit 10 threes. Then you have like the back-to-back DFW area games of Baylor when they play in Fort Worth at Dickies Arena, and he puts up 29, 6, and 3. And then after that, he plays at SMU here in Dallas and puts up 29, 5, and 4. I know Matt Riccardi was at one of those for sure. Was he at the other one? I would probably bet that somebody from the Mavs, if not Riccardi, was at that game in Fort Worth to watch him. But Mikel Brown, who is he? I said he came out of DME high school, 20 years old, 6'5", with a 6'7" wingspan. I will say, I am kind of fascinated by his like height measurement at the combine. Because we all know it's like people talk about with A-Cuff, they're like, dude, Arkansas is like really projecting with that 6'3" there. Is Louisville, or are they projecting that 6'5" number? I will say it doesn't, when you watch him, it doesn't feel like, oh, wow, he's 6'2". It feels like he's up there. So whether he comes in at like 6'3.5" or 6'4", 6'5", like they say, like I think he is a bigger type of guard. He doesn't look small on the floor. But then, he kind of builds more of a name for himself at the Nike Hoop Summit. And then the FIBA, I've referenced this multiple times on this show whenever Brown's name gets brought up, but he has a showing at the FIBA U19 World Cup. And one, if you can get access to these games, go back and watch these games, because this is a really fun team, because you got Mikel Brown running point. You have Morez Johnson Jr., you have AJ DeBonta, you have Koa Pete. Man, there's somebody else on that team that I'm forgetting that is making me mad. Anyway, there's somebody else on that team. So you get these like highly ranked prospects all playing on this team, and you get to see Mikel Brown play kind of like this different type of like role. He's this like facilitator. He's still scoring and stuff in this game, but he's playing this primary point guard role. He's also playing a lot pretty dang good like aggressive defense as this point of attack guy on that team, to where at Louisville it just looked different. Like you could watch that and you could watch Louisville and you're like, oh, it's a different type of role, right? Like you're playing off ball a lot next to Conwell, and you're just you're kind of jacking up shots at times too, and it's like, all right, different type of style of play than which you were playing for Team USA there. But he gets into Louisville and he only plays 21 games. And that's a big bummer, right? Like, and I think this is he is the biggest wild card for me. I think in the top 10, because there's just no, I think it's so hard right now to project where Mikel Brown's going to be in 5 years. And a lot of it has to do with the back, because if he is healthy and he hits the highest upside that Mikel Brown can hit, then he's going to be right there in that top 4 or 5 conversation, like he was months ago. Like, don't forget, like if you look back at any of that stuff, when he was coming out of Nike Hoop Summit and that FIBA U19 going into Louisville, and then right off the bat, I mean, people were like, dude, he's hands down the number 5 prospect, like almost in a tier by himself at times. For some people, it's like, he is that guy. Maybe not Devonta Boozer, Peterson, Caleb Wilson, but he is that guy at 5 in that second tier there. But then he has the injury, and he has the back injury. And you get 21 games of Mikel Brown in college compared to you get 36 to 37 games from Wagler, Flemings, Acuff, the other guards in that range there. It's like, man, that's a lot more games to just get your eyes on them and figure out who they are, their strengths and weaknesses, what they do when they have bad games versus when they're clicking on all cylinders and having the great games. Like that's the hard part with Brown, is you have kind of a limited quantity of games to make such a big decision on, also paired along with this back injury. And I want to talk more about this back injury to give a little bit more context to it coming up right after the break. This podcast is brought to you by our friends over at Quo. Let me find this thing here. Where is it at? Where's the lower third? Quo. There you go. Spring is the natural reset point. There's one thing that can quietly cost business owners money. It's messy communication. Missed calls, scattered text, no clear thread of who said what. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2 with over 3,000 reviews. Trusted by more than 90,000 businesses. It lets your entire team share one business number so you never miss a call, text, or opportunity. And the part I love, everything everything lives in one clean thread. Calls, text, voicemails. The whole team can see the conversation. You don't have to like trickle down to all these people. It's like, hey, y'all can just check it yourselves because we're all in the same thread there. Make this season no opportunity, no customer slips away. Try Quo free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedonnba. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. This podcast is also brought to you by our longtime friends over at Game Time. Guys, the World Cup's coming up. There's only a few Mavs games left coming up. I mean, we got a home Mavs game coming up when Cooper is going for the Rookie of the Year right now, and the Mavs want him to win it. So let's go support Cooper Flagg trying to win Rookie of the Year. There's nothing like being in the NBA arena or the AAC right now. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't been so simple. And that's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. Puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. And here's my favorite thing about Game Time. I say it all the time, but the thing that makes me mad about tickets is when you check out and you have all the surprise fees. Game Time, it's not that way because they have the all-in price up front, no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. And lastly, this podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. If you're about these Cooper Flagg odds right now for Rookie of the Year, then FanDuel's like, hey, you can put your money where your mouth is right now if you believe this. The tournament just finished, but if you want to put money down on Cooper Flagg winning Rookie of the Year, this is where you can do it at FanDuel. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a way to stay in the action all tournament long. Here's the best part. You get up to $300 back in bonus bets every day for 10 days, and you can mix it up however you want. Game picks, futures, even same game parlays for bigger potential payouts. Sorry. It's perfect for Mavs games because every day there's something new, different matchups, new storylines, and more ways to get involved as a bracket, whatever. So visit FanDuel.com to sign up today. That's FanDuel.com to get in on the action.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
All right, talking about the Dallas Mavs, talking about Mikel Brown Jr., who could be a Mavs target. In fact, on the latest No Ceilings big board, they had Mikel Brown Jr. going to Dallas. Our guy Corey Tuluba, he says in the No Ceilings big board, in which he had him taken, he had the Mavs taking Brown at 8. He says instantly they would have one of the most exciting young cores in the league with Flagg, Brown, and Lively. His combination of bounce, plus size, playmaking, and volume shooting from range is unmatched in this class. Dallas lands a prospect who could realistically end up as one of the 3 or 4 best players from this entire class. Hey, this is what I was going for a while ago. Like, if the upside hits on Brown, then you're getting a top 5 type of talent. He's 6'5". He's not a 6'1" type of guard. He's 6'5". You start looking at the things he's strong with. I mean, he is explosive. He's electric. He's kind of bendy, kind of like like Gumby in a way. Whenever he can get through the plane, he's like a little like slippery to where he can just slip through the paint and through defenders. He's a self-creator on offense. No one has to really set him up. He's not going to have. He's not going to have 92% of his 3-pointers assisted on because he can create his own shot. And, so for Brown, it's, even off, I think his outside shooting gets brought up a lot because rightfully so. He's a volume shooter. The percentage went down this year. He's a 34% 3-point shooter. Some people want to like cling to that and be like, dude, he's not that great of a shooter. I'll take the volume any day of the week. And if you watch that Louisville team and you looked at the talent around him, he had to jack up some of these shots. All right. So now, was the decision making perfect on the offensive side of the ball at times? No, it wasn't perfect. There were some ill-advised shots and some bad decisions. Some of the stuff at the rim and just decisions overall on offense at times. You're like, all right, what are you doing there, bro? But then there's other times you're like, dude, can anyone stop you in this game at all? Like you can just take over this game because you're that good. And then as a playmaker, he is a really, really good passer. and a deceptive, smart passer. He can run the pick and roll, set the other guys up. Like I said, he ran that in high school. So I am a firm believer in him being a point guard at the next level. So I think he can run that spot. I think he will be good at that spot. And here's the other thing about the shooting stuff too. I mentioned, the 34%. He shot 84% for the free throw line this year. Let me lean on that when it comes to, let me lean on that and better talent at the next level for that 3-point percentage to go up. I'm not worried about, some people just want to view him like, oh dude, he's just a chucker. He just chucks up threes and the bad percentages, all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm not in that camp. I believe in him as a shooter. Let's talk about the back injury. All right. So Brown goes down earlier in the season, and he has this back injury and he sets out a ton of games. I mean, he misses a while. He comes back from the back injury and plays a handful of games, and then he re-aggravates the injury. That's when he's out. They decide to shut it down, and he's not going to play in the tournament. It kills him. They get put out of the NCAA tournament, and that's when he's crying in the locker room because he wished he could have been out there. Some people, that just didn't have the context of the situation, we're just trying to, kind of like the Peterson thing is like, does he really want to be out there? Like, he's just trying to say, and it's like, he did this interview, and this is what he said. It's to The Athletic. He said, my back was really messed up. No, this is on ESPN, actually, to Anscape, after he declared yesterday. He said, my back was really messed up, but I just kept trying to play through it. And then eventually it just led me to the decision that I wasn't going to play in the tournament, both tournaments, the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament, just because I'm not trained to go half speed at all. I always want to go full speed in everything I do, whether that's me working out to whether it's me playing the game. And I just wasn't able to do that at the time. So I just felt like it was best for me just to sit out. Like, his back was messed up. And here's the thing that worries me the most. And this is from an Athletic piece. And this is the part I didn't like. He said, I had a hard fall in high school. Somebody undercut me and I just fell right directly on my back. And honestly, my back hasn't been fully 100% ever since then. That's the thing. It's just like, this wasn't like a one-time injury. Like, you heard it in high school, you heard it again in college, you re-aggravated it again in your freshman season. And so you're missing time here for this back injury. And he's so young that you're just like, I'm not going to sit here and act, go extreme measures either way, of saying like, hey, it's no big deal. I would take him, here. I'm also not sitting there saying, hey, this is the worst thing ever and he's never going to walk, because I don't know that either. I just know I don't like prospects. I don't like the idea of prospects coming into the draft saying, dude, I've had this back injury this year. And actually, I heard it in high school and it's never been the same since. And so it's not ideal. It's not everything, but it definitely means something to me when it comes to that. The biggest question mark for Mikel Brown, for a lot of people, is will he be just a scoring combo guard or like an energetic, fiery punch off the bench? Or will he be an actual point guard that can create, that can play defense, that can play make for the others? That's the biggest thing he has to answer, because if you're not a believer in him as a point guard, which kind of sounds like a file-on conversation here to an extent, if you're not a believer in him being a point guard and playing that type of role, then some of those people, the naysayers, will just point to Jordan Poole and say he can be a Jordan Poole because he can light it up. He could take the threes, and when he's on, and it's so much fun, right? But I think he can be more of a point guard than Jordan Poole. And that's where it's like, these are names that I've seen thrown out there. And I think he can be better than these guys. Anfernee Simons, Keyonte George, which Keyonte George is having a really good season in Utah. A bigger Darius Garland, Tyler Herro, which, Herro and Garland have been all-stars. All right. So, Keyonte wasn't an all-star, right? No, he wasn't. No, there's no way the Jazz had an all-star. Sorry. OJ Mayo, I mean, that's kind of like a deep cut a little bit, but it's those type, and I get it. Some people are sitting there saying, Isaac, you typically don't like the undersized scoring like guards, right? Like you don't like the undersized scoring two guards because you can point at the Cam Thomases, you can point at the even the Quentin Grimes situation, and no one was willing to pay him what he thought he was going to get. And you're like, all right, what's the long-term view of a guy like that? The difference is I think he can play point guard. And I think if put in the right situation, I think he can, I mean, you're talking about a 6'5" point guard that can do everything that he does. You look across the board, I had a Vicini note that I wanted to throw out here. Sam Vicini says, when Brown has it rolling, there may not be a more dynamic ball screen playmaker in college basketball. He said, if there's anyone in this deep draft class who could average 9 or 10 assists per game in the NBA, it's Mikel Brown Jr. This is from an Athletic piece about him in which they talked to other coaches in college, and they said he's like a bigger Darius Garland, high-level shooter who knows how to use ball screens and make plays for others. It's coming from an ACC coach. And then it said, different quote here, if here's actually this is a different quote, and this came from him to Anscape. And he says this about playing a point guard type of role. If you need me to be that point guard to orchestrate everything and get people involved, I can be that, Brown said. If you want me to score, I can do that as well. I do think my best attribute is creating for others at the end of the day, just to see my teammates and put them in the best position to take advantage of an opportunity. I really thrive on that, and that kind of gets me going. That's what you want to hear from a guy like that, right? Like, I don't think there's a doubt that he can score. I think if you really want to nitpick a little bit, you can look around like him finishing at the basket, which shout out to the left-handed dunk against Arkansas. Whoa. But there were times he struggled, especially in high school. But it feels like as he starts to get stronger over time, that's not going to be an issue. He's so crafty with the ball that I'm just not worried with that. I think when you look at him on the offensive side of the ball, you have to ask the question, hey, some of this decision-making and what you do when you get into the paint or some of the bad shots you take, is that because of basketball IQ or is it because of the lack of talent around you? And that, I think that is telling. And you might not know that answer until you actually have to draft them and get them into your system and everything. So I think when you look at fit in Dallas, I think it would be a nice fit. If he's healthy and he's good, like he's hitting on all cylinders, then I think it's an awesome fit, because you get a guy, I mean, you talk about range. I mean, guys, this guy has insane range. All right. I think, I threw out there some comps a little bit ago, but it's like, you look at guys, I was trying to think of who are some like, hey, if he hits top level, he stays healthy, he becomes one of those, like, you're looking back and like, oh, you should have went top 4 or top 5 in that draft. I think you look at a guy like a Damian Lillard. Who is another name that I was thinking of when you're looking across the board and you're like, oh, because I just think he's more than he picks and chooses some of these point guard things. There's even an article where he talks about who he studies and watches, and he's like, well, I like to pull some of Steph's game. And I think some of the coming off screens and pull up shooting, if you like, there is some like Steph tendencies in there. You can tell he watches a lot of Steph. He say he watches Chris Paul for some of the playmaking. He watches Trae Young for some of the like coming off ball screens and stuff. But I'm a believer in him as a point guard. For me, it all comes down to the back. If you're telling me if Mikel Brown did not have this back injury, then I would have him right there with Wagler at 5. But until we know anything about the back thing, and I don't know when we will know, right? Until I guess the medical stuff at the combine, and then they're going to have to convince some people like, hey, he is fully healed. That thing is in the past. Even though it started in high school, this thing is done, over with. And I would put money down probably that's going to be the messaging that's going to come out of his camp, is they want to alleviate concerns about his back injury. And you do that by getting some clean medical stuff for teams. and by showing some pretty dang good athleticism when it comes to some workouts and private workouts that you're going to be doing with some of these other teams. So I'll be fascinated to see what happens with that. And yeah, I mean, you start thinking about his fit in Dallas, and he is one of those prospects like a Keaton Wagler that can come in and play alongside Kyrie Irving. And then when Kyrie sets down, he can be the point guard too. He can be the future point guard to pair up with Flagg moving forward. He has the size to also play alongside Kyrie Irving for spurts and stuff too. Defensively, you know, I don't think he's the same type of defensive prospect as like a Phylon, a Kingston Flemings at time, but he's not Acuff. Acuff really struggles with defense. Like we've talked about that before. But he's not Acuff with that. Like I think he can be an above average defender, point of attack guy, that he's not like the target every time. I mean, maybe from some of the bigger players on a switch or something. But anyway, that's Mikel Brown. He is kind of an X factor with his top 10. He is kind of polarizing because of the injury and because of the lack of game tape that you can have. I mean, 21 games is not a lot compared to these other guys. So if you are a Mavericks team that's drafted in the top 8 and you take Mikel Brown Jr., it's a risk. Like, I'm going to get it. If they do it, I get it. And I'll be like, dude, I know what you're going for. I get the fit. I see the vision for it and everything. But you're basing it off of 21 games in college, and he's coming off a back injury in college that originally happened in high school, in which he says has never fully healed and never been 100% since then. And that's a risky swing. And if the Mavericks passed up on him and have drafted someone else over him, I would get it, because I get the whole argument against it too, of not taking Mikel Brown, of saying, hey, we get one shot at this draft pick. We don't have another first round draft pick to take in the near future. So we get one more shot at this. We can't have that type of risk for this type of asset. We have to take somebody that is a little bit more certain at this position. And that's why I would understand that position too, if they decide to go with someone else. So there's the curious case of Mikel Brown, and especially in regards to Dallas. And I think he's the biggest wild card in the top 10 heading into the lottery and draft night. We'll be back with another episode later on tonight. Peace out. Boom.